Good afternoon, YouTube. I'm excited to release the F5 Container Ingress Services for Kubernetes and OpenShift 2.9 to the world. So there's a lot of contribution to this minor release. However, this is actually quite a big release for CIS because there's some really good features that a lot of you folks have been asking for over the last coming months. Plus, we've also refactored, redesigned our OpenShift routes. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of these enhancements, some of what's coming, and what's here in CIS 2.9. So taking a look at the release notes, one thing you're going to notice is that you're going to see a lot of CRD work. It's actually a lot, and a lot of it was because of migration from config map or migration from ingress, where users are using early versions 2.2, 2.4 of CIS, and we're waiting for CIS to expose these configuration objects within CRDs themselves. So for example, a big one would be the load balancing method. Load balancing method is to specify what load balancing you want to do, whether it's a specific algorithm or a specific method, or it's none. And as you can see, what's happened is we've added that to the virtual server as well as transport server as well. Obviously, virtual server load balancing would be a little different than transport, just depending upon what you're doing. We've added DOS protection to both virtual server transport and policy. We've added bot defense protection, so both. So behavioral DOS potentially for L7 as well as policy CRD, where you can have them both. The option to manipulate the client and server TCP profile has been added. We've added One Connect. We've added the capabilities to do stuff like also server profiles. We've kind of added that into both virtual servers as well. Snag pull into the policy CRD. One thing that's also here is the capability to add a policy CRD to a service type load balancer that you can see right here, right? Add support to policy CRD as an annotation. And of course, there's examples for that. I have actually created a video on that, and we'll talk about that in a minute. The global names, so to basically create a name for a virtual server transport server CRD. This is actually quite interesting because if you have something like port 53, right, for DNS. And so, for example, before with CIS, without a custom name, if you set up a transport server for port 53 TCP, but then you create one for port 53 UDP, you're going to start to see an overwrite. So here now you can create a custom name. So for example, you can create a virtual server called DNS/TCP or DNS/UDP, and it will create the two associated virtual servers with the same IP address. That's actually pretty cool. Expansion to external DNS. This is now to provide a global availability load balance method where you have order of precedence. So for example, here you can set a 0 and 1. So this is like active standby for external DNS. So as you can see, a lot of work around CRDs. This is all coming from you folks through creation of GitHubs and service requests and talking to your sales teams, and just kind of what we see with what you folks are looking for. To be really honest with you, CRDs is now to a point, I think, with 2.9 where a lot of potentially what was needed is there. There should be no reason why you couldn't feel comfortable with migrating from a config map if you wanted to abstract that to a CRD and simplify, I think, your Kubernetes resource without having to natively use AS3 JSON within a YAML, right? So it's going to simplify your life. If there's anything that you're missing, you need to let us know. But I think that 2.9 kind of reaches that point. And how do I know this? Because I've been working with some very, very, very close F5 users or F5 customers, from my perspective, that are looking to migrate, and that's kind of how I know it. This was actually kind of added for a service provider. What's really interesting is that now I got another one of these use cases for SCTP support out of Asia Pacific, and I'm actually quite excited that we added it for one. Now there's another customer picking it up, so that's actually kind of good. Yes, we heard config map. This is that we're listening. We initially added node port local support only for CRDs. That was my mistake, and I admit to that. I thought that we would see a little bit more traction there on CRDs, but I got a lot of feedback, and this has been validated already. I have a person in the community that's been testing a early version of 2.9, and they really like it. They've also tested the CRDs of 2.9. They really like that as well. So thank you to those early testers, contributors that provided feedback. And so this is really cool. On the node port local for config map, we should start seeing some traction here. Some additional to next-gen routes. Add support for route status for rejection of legacy routes, and this is actually really cool. So if there's a mistake in the route and it's actually getting rejected, it was not actually showing up in the dashboard, and so now this is showing up in the dashboard as well. We validated with OCP 4.9 as well as the latest version of AS3. You're going to ask me, where's OCP 4.10? Please stand by. We're working on it. There's a lot of next-gen route work here. There was a lot of Tanzu work here. Yes, I understand that we're a little bit behind on OCP 4.10. Good news is it's in the current sprint. So stand by. It's coming. Most likely it would be 2.9.1 with full validation of OCP 4.10 for both OpenShift SDN as well as OVN Kubernetes. But again, if you need more information, just reach out to me. I can get more information. We've also added and supporting the latest CRD schema in the Helm charts. I absolutely love this. Guys did a phenomenal job about updating the Helm charts with our latest CRD schema. It's really important, by the way. When you're upgrading, you have to make sure that you're using the latest RBAC. We shouldn't have made any changes in RBAC for a couple of releases now, but make sure if you're upgrading from an early version of CIS, you update the schema as potentially as well as the RBAC. And so now with Helm, it kind of pulls and consumes a lot of that. So if you need some of these new features, specifically on the CRD side, make sure you pull the schema. And I've created a link in here. Quite a lot of bug fixes here going on. As you can see, some bug fixes. Also, a lot of bug fixes on documentation. It's really important. If you see something you don't like or something that's missing, please let us know. Some crashes on routes, etc., etc. Some service ports. This is actually potentially a change that we made. We fixed this. This is for a specific customer here. Upgrade notification. So there's a really good, if you click on this link, it'll kind of take you to some upgrade information. If you're doing CRDs, just follow these docs. Specifically with some CRDs, it kind of talks a little about some of the changes here. Before we update, it kind of gives you a good idea of kind of how you need to update during the update and then after the update, and then some general troubleshooting if you see something that you don't like. Also on this link right here, you can actually see there is the latest schema. You can see it hasn't been touched in 10 days, and that's actually a really good way of kind of looking at it. One thing that I want to start doing is potentially putting some kind of version in the schema so that we can really know by the version of it. Today we really don't have that. Our API schema is really just this right here, but I'm thinking about putting some kind of spec in here, and maybe that will come in next, because it is kind of useful to kind of like put a version in there to kind of determine kind of where the version is. But that's the latest schema. You can see it's 10 days. You can pull it directly from GitHub. It is in the docs, the config examples, and I have linked to the latest schema in the release notes. So you'll find it here. You only need the schema if you're using CRDs. We continue to improve our IPAM. So as you can see right here, we've fixed some issues that have come in. So please use the IPAM controller. It is fully supported. So use the IPAM controller if you need any fixes. You can pull that in. So the latest IPAM controller, it is available on GitHub, and you can download that. You can see here we fixed some labels where there were some commas and stuff like that. Some known issues here where we are seeing something with new pulls to an existing range for FIC. This is the IPAM controller. So known issue here. We're also seeing some multi-host VS and policy CRDs, profiles attachment to LTM. There's a document for this as well. One thing that we've also done is we've updated the container image. It's a UBI from Red Hat. It has been updated, so any vulnerability that was previously there has potentially been mitigated. It has also been run against vulnerability assessment, vulnerability scanning to determine if there's anything critical. If there was, it was addressed. And so just to let you know that both the Docker and the Red Hat image have been updated to the latest version, and so vulnerability assessment has been mitigated. So overall, 2.9 is a really good release. I highly recommend pick it up. A little bit about what's coming next. We've started working on our maintenance 2.9.1. It's a maintenance release that's coming out in a month. We will publish this in a month from now, so it's a 2-sprint release, and then we're starting to work on 2.10. So I'm going to post a video a little bit, probably maybe in a week, maybe next week, to talk a little bit about what we're thinking about doing in 2.10. I'm quite excited about 2.10. There's some really good stuff, new development, new design, new integrations, some work with Nginx. So that's all coming up in 2.10. Next gen routes, please play with this. This is actually really excited. It is fully documented now. We actually documented it on GitHub. It's kind of a preview. We're going to start to add to our next gen routes. I also created a video on the next gen routes as well here. So this is my playlist. If you go take a look at this playlist, there's a video here on next gen routes. So go ahead and listen to this video. What I've also done here is I've created a GitHub repo of a diagram where you can clone this repo to kind of pull in all of these next gen routes. So next gen routes is so important for us because it removes that limitation of only being able to configure one public IP per CIS instance. So OpenShift router traditionally only has one public IP. That could be cafe.example.com, and then everything is L7. But with next-gen routes, that's no longer the case. With next-gen routes now, it's like CRDs. You can create as many next-gen routes as you want and start doing L7 routing. What's also really great is that each namespace or each group of next-gen routes or each FQDN potentially could have its own tenant, its own place on Big IP. So we only post to that namespace or to that tenant. Please listen to this video. Again, if you like this video, please make sure you subscribe and also that you like this video so that more of these cool things get shared through YouTube based on their algorithm. And so I think this is actually kind of nice. Would love to get your feedback so that we can start to iterate and start to add a little bit more to our next-gen routes. And we can really do this now because it gives us, because we finished the platform, so we can really expand and do actually some interesting things that I think that will actually make it easier in the future. So getting back to the release notes, next-gen routes. By the way, this actual work started in 2.7, but it was a parallel effort. It was a parallel train, and it was merged into 2.9. That's why you're starting to see it come up now. But it's actually been in the work for actually quite some time. And so I'm really excited that we merged the branch, and so now we merge it all into master. And so everything is there. So back on the playlist, There's also some examples here of using service type load balancer with Nginx. It doesn't have to be Nginx. It can be any application in the back end. It's basically any service. So with the next gen routes here, which is one we have, the next one example that we have here, I'm not sure who he is, but if we go here and take a look at this example, you can actually see here, so type load balancer is actually adding a policy CRD. So if we actually look at this quickly here, if we go down to the service and pull up the service right there. So as you can see, your policy CRD is right here, which is getting associated to the service. You folks asked for this. This is stuff that the community asked for, and so we have delivered it. And the policy CRD is really important because the policy CRD in the use case that was requested, the policy CRD requested to have a snack pool, right? And so snack pool can be here because it can be anything that's in the policy. So just go look at the schema for the policy CRD and you'll be able to add the snack pool. But here's my example. You can see what I'm doing here is I'm adding WAF, I'm adding DOS, all the log profiles, custom TCP options, etc. So that's the policy CRD that is associated to a service for service type load balancer in that example. So that takes care of this. This is all new as part of CIS 2.9. There's some enhanced load balancing that we talked a little bit about, some other enhancements as well. These videos have actually been around for a while because I actually created them at the initial first sprint of CIS. So you can actually, these have been posted for a while. Now I'm actually posting the release. So I'm actually really excited about, that one right there, about that one right there. And of course, One Connect has been asked for quite a while. So there, that wraps up the CIS 2.9 release. I want to thank everybody that was involved, all the contributors from developers, everyone that's been doing some testing, all of the community that's been requesting features, all of the sales folks that have been asking for enhancements, doing the testing, prioritization. There's a lot of work that's gone into this. And of course, I want to thank the CIS development team for all of this work as well, because without you folks, this wouldn't have been possible. So have a lovely afternoon. Thank you.